Hey, it's about 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, and welcome to week number 2 of Introduction to Criminal Law. And my name is Richard Wright, for those of you already know that, and I'm going to spend time going over the material for week number 2. I do want to mention the fact that, and you guys probably already know this, some of you know it, I know you do, Denise, that the assignments will be graded by this Friday for week 1, and they were due yesterday by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, except the discussion posts were due Saturday, and that starting this week, discussion posts will be due Tuesdays. So we're going to go over that real quick, getting into the material. And let's go over Firefox. Let's share. Okay, you can now see the screen. Messages, great book. Discussion. Okay, let's go straight to the announcements. And let's move that down. Okay, so this week, Module 2, Crimes Against Property, will be presented. And you would read chapters 3, 4, and 12 of the text. And then we'll go over the activities. What are crimes against property, larceny, robbery or burglary, misappropriation, trespassing and vandalism, key terms for practice, which crimes is against property, the practice quiz. We'll just take a brief look at that. And I want to remind you that the discussion assignment, robbery, burglary, and theft, the initial post is due tomorrow night, the 15th, by 11:59 p.m., and that the reply post is due Saturday at 11:59 p.m. And your written assignment, the identity theft problem, will be due on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard. And you know my motto, adversity is a springboard to success. So let's go and take a look at the module. Okay, first let's look at the discussion assignment. Now, I'm going to tell you that the people who, except I see your post already, Denise. I'm reading what you wrote. Perfect. Perfect. Let me read what you said in the chat. Yeah, that's a smart thing. But you got it. You got it. You got all the points right. You got it, because of what I'm going to be talking about tonight. So considering the fact pattern of Debbie and dealing with Larry, you're going to take a look at, and you're going to determine whether Debbie has committed robbery, burglary, theft, and do you believe the elements of all 3 crimes have been satisfied? And then explain the difference between the crimes, and then in your reply post. But you already did it. You were right. She did not commit robbery. And I'll be talking about that during my lecture. You are right on point, but I'm not surprised, Denise. Okay, double S. Okay. Yeah, I said I told somebody, I says you're welcome. I have a student, I says, that nobody else has the spelling of her name. Her name is Denise. A lot of people got that name, not with double S. Okay. So anyway, that's the assignment, and you know when it's due there. All right. And yeah, that's a very smart thing to get those done right away. Then the written assignment. Okay, so now here's the deal here with this one. You said you were that kid that, let me see what that said. You were the kid that, yeah, you're right. Well, you like my, yeah, I got a niece who's like that. Her name is Germany. And Germany, you know, it's spelled like Jermany, but hers is Jhermani. There are no keychains, there's no license plates, there's none of that stuff with that. Unlike people like me, Richard, they're all over the place. So, but yeah, I hear you. Um, so this is a two-part test, written assignment. And so you're going to take this scenario in the first part and answer the questions. And you're going to write a minimum two-page paper. And it's APA formatted. And when I say APA, you know, but I'll repeat it for students. APA means there must be citations in the body. There must be references at the end on a separate page. There must be a cover page and in Romans 12. It must be. Okay. Now, you can do this in two files. Um, you know, some people like to put it into the what do you call it? Zip files. Those are okay, but you can do it without doing that if you want. So anyway, read the fact pattern and then answer each of these four questions. Notice again, what I just said is right here. It says, if you use your textbook to research the elements, include a reference page. Well, I say to students, use your textbook, but sparingly. Use the module sparingly. Research is what we want to do. Once again, when the course developers put some of this stuff together, I don't call using the textbook research, but outside sources, which you can get from the library and learning center. You can get that from your library. Okay, so please, and don't throw a gratuitous citation. I want citations throughout the paper. If you cite a case, cite the official court case. It's very important. Now, here's what I always say. When you write these papers, the key thing is that citations provide support for the statements that are contained in the paper. So I can read a paper and I can read through it. And if I read a long time and don't see a citation or in the body, then I'm saying, wait a minute, where'd you get this idea, this information from? You got it from someplace. Give credit. Remember, cite your sources. Very important. I've had students, they write me a two-page paper and one citation. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. Okay. And then create a flyer. Now, you're going to be using this scenario here where you're playing the role of a detective, where there's been identity theft complaints. And what you want to do is to have something that the public can be familiar with about identity theft. And you can use the flyer. There's a template in here that you can use for that. Create a one-page flyer. Please do not copy and paste materials to do this, but I want you to identify relevant statistics. Then it tells you where you could find them, and then common techniques that are used, Identify the methods. Again, citations in the body. If you can create your papers from scratch using Microsoft Word or Publisher. Most people stay away from Publisher. Use Word if you're going to do it that way. Make sure that you do it. But here's the template. And of course, you can download that and it'll open up a template to show you how it works. Here it comes. And it shows you what the template looks like. Okay, and here's the template. And don't everybody use this. I have some students that use the same picture and all that, add events and so forth. It just gives you some ideas about how you can do it. Replace it with a logo, and then have your information, date, title, and so forth. All right. And if you were to click on that right here, you can now edit it. Okay. You can edit it and put a different picture in there and those kind of things. So be sure that you get that done. All right. I was just showing you what it's like. All right. Let's take that down. To help gather information for your flyers, recommend that you conduct an internet research for the Federal Trade Commission and identity theft statistics. That is good to find that. Don't copy and paste directly from the internet. Remember, I said that already. Make this an original flyer. That's why I want it in Word, so that I can run it through Grammarly and check it. Make sure that it's APA formatted, which means citations. By the way, you don't have to have a separate reference page for this, just the citations. Your reference page should include whatever sources you use for this as well as for the written assignment, and sometimes those are one and the same. Okay, any questions? Okay, so we're good there. All right, please everybody, please don't give me just citations and don't give me just references. Give me citations and references. Very, very, very important. Okay. So now we're going to talk about what are crimes against property, what's larceny, what's robbery or burglary, misappropriation, and all of that we're going to do within the next 45 minutes or so. So let's start by talking about criminal law and what crime is it that we are looking at. Oh, wrong thing. Went back to the assignment. What are crimes against property? So what are crimes against property? I always tell people at the very beginning, crimes against property are crimes that are not against persons, individuals, but against the property they possess. Okay, and property offenses are oftentimes not as severe in terms of what you can receive for a sentence. However, there are a couple that do fit in there, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But tangible loss of property, such as burglary, um, victims of other property crimes may have insurance to cover their loss, but there's still a cost of paying deductibles. You should also be aware of this, as we learned in law school when we talked about how insurance operates, is that your losses are spread between all parties, so that what happens is your premium rates increase to take care of the claims that are paid. And when there's like a big barrage, like a hurricane or major catastrophe, tornado, or something like that, it's spread among the people in that region. Now, and so it's expensive, um, uh, such as theft, which you'll see in a minute here. Larceny. So we're going to talk about larceny first, then we're going to talk about burglary and robbery, misappropriation, trespassing, and vandalism. Now, all of these crimes have been um, put into the statute, all right? And the statutes all across the United States to cover them. So let's go into more specifics, and let's talk about larceny first. Larceny is also known as theft. That's what we pretty much use today, the term theft. It is the exact same thing. The common law property offense was referred to as larceny, which was basically taking property away from a person with intent to permanently deprive them of the ownership of that property. We say we're stealing. That's what it amounts to. And that you should be aware that there can be grand theft, and there can be just regular theft or misdemeanor. And an example given here is if the property is valued at less than $299.99, it could be a misdemeanor. And those of you should be aware that a misdemeanor is when a person is sentenced to jail, generally jail, for less than a year. So these are the less severe offenses. But if it's 1 cent more and it crosses the threshold into 300, then it's grand theft. So at that point, then it increases and becomes a felony. So the value of the property makes it more expensive. So most phones, cell phones, especially the ones we have now, especially those of you who have iPhone. Are you an iPhone person, Denise? Your iPhone? Sure, most young people are. And somebody said, "How could you conclude that most of your students are young people?" I said, "Well, I can say young people to a lot of people I work with. Period. It's because I'm 71. Not too many of my students are at my age group. I haven't had any anyway that I know of. So, but the point of the matter is that you guys prefer um, those iPhones. My daughter, 13, my son, 21, my daughter, 22, and now even my son, 26. He left us and abandoned us, and now he's that. But anyway, what I was going to say is that if someone steals your phone, chances are they could be convicted of a felony as opposed to a misdemeanor. Okay. And that's with most phones, not them old phones or flips. Those might be less than $299, but easily your phones are 300 or more. And even my Android, 300 or more. And the only reason I mention that is because that's something that people steal all the time. And then anything that has a price that is like that. In addition, there's other kinds of theft. There's like what we call retail theft. And retail theft can take the form of stealing items, and it can also take the form of switching the tags. Now, as you know, now you scan a lot of this now, so it's harder. But back when I started practicing law, we didn't have that issue. And what people would do sometimes is they would switch the tags to get a lower price. I actually represented a young lady who was with a bunch of girls who down in Carbondale, Illinois. She was attending SIU down there, and I knew the family, so they hired me to represent her down there. And She was found not guilty because it was proven that she was not, she was with them, but she wasn't one of the ones that was caught on video and all of that stuff. But to try to get a deal, those kinds of things. And then most retail theft is where somebody's actually shoplifting. That's what we refer to the term. Auto theft, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Of course, obviously, that fits in grand theft and is generally a felony. Theft of telecommunications. What that means is bootleg um, cable. Now, a lot of these stick things, fire sticks and all of those, they have reached the stage they're not illegal, but that it causes the price to go up. So cable is expensive, satellite and video. But you know about video, people have bootleg video all the time. They will copy the video and then uh, uh, sell it. And then you're probably also familiar with this one where you go to the show, and I haven't been to the show in a while because of COVID, but you've been to the show and you're sitting there and you have a whole row of people that are kind of like near, they're not exactly in the front, but they're near the front, and they got their cell phones out. Have you ever seen that before? Yeah, and they're what they're doing is they're taping the videotaping the movie, and they send it back to a computer, and they put together bootleg copies of the movie. So therefore, people are able to see first run movies before they hit the theater without going through. Like for example, now you can get first run movies. Like if you go to I have Prime Video, and I also have HBO Max, which now is starting to do that with a lot of movies. And then there's some of the other channels that are doing the same thing with movies, where you can see them at the same time they're at the show. Disney also is good for doing that on Disney Plus and things like that. But what I'm trying to say to you is when you know that you have gotten the service without paying for it or paying appropriately. Okay. So automobiles, we'll talk about that in a minute. Uh, so, okay. And then there is, what else? Okay, then when we get into um, vehicle thefts, then you're looking at a situation where it's common now, and vehicle theft is stealing of cars. Now you can see right there the screwdriver thing, but do you know now that most cars, the newer cars, have a different kind of lock. So the screwdrivers and things don't work with that. But what they do is they might even they might break the window. That's the last resort. But the other thing that they do is they will pry in between and get the things open. Have you've gone and you had your keys locked up in the car, and you have some of those people come to unlock your car. They have those things that they can jam in. You know what I'm talking about? And they can open it up so you can get inside your car. So locksmiths, they're supposed to be licensed, but they can be used to, yeah, yeah. And so even uh, and some of the older models, people would take hangers. You remember I used to have to do that myself to get into my car. Of course, I never got in nobody else's car, where you twist the hanger and you could reach the lever and pull that out. That's the old-fashioned way without calling for some help. But yeah. Oh, you were in the car? Were you locked in the car? Were you, oh, you weren't in the car. Oh, okay. I thought you said he had to use it when you were a kid. Uh, Oh, okay. My daughter one time had to do that because she locked my granddaughter, who's now Mariah's like 27 or something, but when she was little, she locked her in the driveway and the car was running, and she called me, Dad, what, but anyway, she ended up getting a hanger and getting in there and getting in there out. But anyway, my point being is that vehicle thefts are common, and cars are stolen. Now, here's the deal now, though. The newest thing is that when you look at this auto theft, and it's very simple elements: intentionally um, operating or driving without the consent, the vehicle of somebody else's. Okay, operating and driving, that's the key thing. Okay, now if you break into the car and you're not driving it, what do you call that? Anybody, you know what you would know what that would be? Taking something out of the car. You know what that would be? What crime that would be? Yep, yep, yep. You're sharp. You're sharp. That's exactly what it is. It's burglary. Um, and you'll hear me talk about that when I get to burglary. But the various statutes now across the country all have in common operating and driving, and that basically is setting the vehicle in motion. Okay, and that the intention of that is to take the car and deprive the person of that vehicle. All right. Then we have another crime called joyriding. Now, joyriding is something that generally will take place with my 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 niece did that with her grandmother. She took her car and went to the store or something, and the police stopped her. And when the person takes it without the consent, but they don't want to keep the car, there it's an unauthorized use of the vehicle. Also, if the vehicle is returned within 48 hours, it's a misdemeanor, not a felony. In such case, there's a lack of intent to deprive. So the longer you keep the vehicle, the more likely you're going to go not from joyriding, but to vehicle theft. And then you become felonious. You might end up probably with misdemeanors here. Okay. Carjacking. This is a crime that is not only on the rise, it is really, especially in Chicago. I it's similar to armed robbery because force is involved. And that's the element that brings it. Look at what Illinois says, my great state, in chapter 720 of the Illinois uh, statutes, 18-3. Vehicular hijacking prohibits a person from knowingly taking a motor vehicle from the person or the immediate presence of another by the use of force. So that's how it happens. So let me ask this question. If the vehicle is taken and you leave your keys in your car running and you go into the gas station inside and the person steals the car, is that carjacking? Okay, if you're inside the store and you come out and your car is gone, is that carjacking? Was your car jacked or was it just stolen? There you go. Yeah. You can get you can get thrown off on that one. So if though there's any force involved, that's when we get to the jacking part. That was why I asked that question. Because there are people who do that. I don't know why they leave their car running. They just do. you know, or they can turn their car off. Like I have my car, I have a Lincoln MKZ, and my Lincoln MKZ, um, when I walk up to my car, I have my keys in my pocket. It unlocks my car and stuff like that. And then my car, and my wife has a Mercedes, and hers does the same thing, is that you don't even have an ignition, you just push a button. And when you push the button, the car starts. So if you leave your keys in the car, uh, in the vehicle, not in the ignition, but just anywhere, like sitting in an ashtray, or either in the glove compartment even, um, it will allow that person to take the car and start it. But if you don't have the keys, then they won't be able to do that unless they do some wiring and stuff like that. So I'm just saying that that's one of the things. I think that any person who leaves their cars running and gets out, they're asking for to give their car away. But carjacking is a felony in every state, because this is generally how it happens right here. And your car is taken, and other things too. Okay, so now we've talked about theft or larceny. Let's move on to my favorite section of this lecture. And you already know, pretty much. Robbery and burglary are oftentimes interchangeably described, but they're not the same. They're not the same. For example, look what a definition of burglary is. Now, breaking and entering the dwelling of another with intent to steal or commit another crime, such as vandalism or arson. At common law, burglary was limited to a home and must have occurred at the nighttime. That was the way when we were in law school, they taught us about one of the elements of burglary in the nighttime. But today, burglary can occur in a house, the vehicle. Remember, I was talking about that earlier. A business or vessel. And so that is how you can have burglary. Now, the nighttime thing came about because burglars committed crimes in the nighttime because they would blend in. That's why the typical burglar attire consists of what color? What color clothing would they wear? Yeah, that goes back to the nighttime thing. But now people even do it during the day because it just came into it. But that's the origin, so you'll know what that's that's a little informational stuff for you. But burglary now can occur any time of the day or night. Okay, and most statutes are written like that. Robbery is with intent to permanently deprive the person of property. Sounds like theft. Sounds like larceny. But robbery has two more elements that must be included. From the person, from the person, off of the person, from the person, and done by the use of force, intimidation, threat, or violence. Okay, now, and we're going to get into this in just a few minutes. I always like to pause here and ask the question, is pickpocketing armed robbery, or is it robbery? Is it robbery? You think pickpocketing is robbery? Let me ask a question. Pickpocketing is generally done where someone takes your wallet, or takes something from your purse, not taking it off you, snatching it, and you don't realize it's gone. That's why it's called pickpocket. So, is it robbery? Remember though, it is the taking from a person, but right, what's missing is the second important, very important part: use of force, intimidation. Now, if that wouldn't be a pickpocket if a person intimidates you and takes something. If they threaten you, it's not. If they use violence, no, that's not it. That then we've changed. But your pickpocket is, um, somebody taking you walking, you don't know they took it. That's what we call pickpocket. So that is theft, and it could be felonious because of what's in the wallet or purse. Most wallets or purses contain credit cards and maybe some even cash amounts. The point of the matter is, you see why I raised that point? You see how tricky you see how you can fall into a trap real quick? You got to get every element. That's the point that I'm making. So let's move on. So armed robbery is, according to the Wisconsin statute and most statutes across the country, unlawful taking by the use or threat of a dangerous weapon or an article used or fashioned in a manner to lead the person reasonably to believe that it is a dangerous weapon. Say you have a hot dog in your pocket and you're sticking it out. It's still armed robbery because you don't know what that is that that person has in their hand. Can you use your finger and do that and be guilty of armed robbery? Could you? Yeah, because once again, that's why law is so cool. You have to have, if one element is missing, it changes the charges. So yeah, because I said here, the use of threat of a dangerous weapon or any article used or fashioned to lead the victim to reasonably believe that is a dangerous weapon. That's why toy guns and things like that. So here we go. If a person used a pen and pointed it towards the person thinking it was a gun, give me your wallet or you'll be shot. This is armed robbery, okay? Because it's based on the belief of that person. All right. Strong armed robbery. Now we get to the point where robbery elevates to strong armed robbery when it is snatched. A 25-year-old woman is jogging on the trail. She has a small wristlet purse, which contains her identification and $20 cash. And the kid uh, runs up behind her, rips it away, and runs off with it. That's not pickpocket, or either as you're looking at in that picture. That's snatching it. So because no weapon was displayed, but force was used, it's called strong arm robbery. You got that? As soon as you have a reasonable belief of a weapon, it changes to armed robbery and not strong armed robbery. All right. Home invasion. A lot of people mix this up with burglary. But look at what home invasion is. It's another form of robbery, but it's serious because of the potential for human harm. Um, it, um, it usually catches a person off guard. Intentionally entering the dwelling of another without consent and commits robbery thereof. That's home invasion. Okay? The dwelling of another. Would that include a mobile home? Yep, it's their dwelling. Exactly. Exactly. Very good. Sometimes people think, oh no, it's like a car now. No. So anyway, you get the differences here, which you need to be aware of. You're going to need to remember this in 2 weeks. Coming up, the test. Okay. I whispered that. All right. Okay. All right. So, and then you can look at other resources and so forth. But you got the general gist of it. We're going to have some practice stuff in a minute, and you'll see what I mean. So, while I'm on that again, burglary today, does it require you physically going in to the property to commit the crime? Do you have to physically? That's right. Did what's her name? Debbie? Did Debbie go inside Larry's house? She just reached inside an open window, right? So, oh yeah, but she stole it. Yes, but that was theft. It was inside the house. She reached through it. Even if you had a stick, a hook, or anything you put through there, you still are guilty of burglary. Here's the deal, people, and this is the way we remembered it when I was in law school. If it breaks the plane of the property, which it does by reaching in, then in that case, it reaches the element of burglary. And a lot of people are going to get tricked. You didn't. With that Debbie situation, says no, she didn't commit burglary, but she did commit burglary because she reached in on it. And I think you were on top of that, Denise. And so the point of the matter is that I have some people who now I'm gonna have a whole bunch of people, if they waited till tomorrow to do it and they listen to the lecture tonight when I send it over, then they'll say, oh man, I had to change my answer. No, don't change your answer, even if it's in the discussion post. Just, you just learn, that's all. Because I will respond and tell you, no, it's not, because you won't lose points before it because of that in your discussion post. I just want you to understand what was wrong with it, and you do. So I just want to say that before I left this. So let's get to misappropriation. Misappropriation is where you have I actually the opportunity to modify or change something where you have been put possibly in a trust position, and so you commit uh, the crime of embezzlement, commit fraud, forgery, welfare fraud, identity theft, and credit card crimes. So let's talk about misappropriation. It's just basically where the money was intended to be used for one thing. Okay, you can find yourself taking away the property and use it for personal use when it wasn't supposed to be for personal use. Like, for example, um, there was a guy who killed himself up in, he was a policeman, Fox Lake North in Chicago. I can't remember his name. And he was over the scouts or the um, police patrol. Anyway, they had some funds that were put up for use for something, and he appropriated them and used them. Well, he ended up killing himself because he was going to be arrested and go to jail for it. But his wife, Glenowitz, that was his name, Glenowitz, and he was a Fox Lake police officer. That's a town on the up north in Illinois, and so that would be considered as um, misappropriation of funds, but it's also embezzlement. So what he did was use that money for his personal gains and stuff like that. All right. You hear about those all the time. They give an example here about the good old Mike, manager for a large hotel chain. He generates invoices for food and beverages purchased for the hotel, but he comes up with a scheme where he provides fictitious companies delivering liquor to the hotel, but instead it's money for himself. And he has them mailed to a P.O. box and cashes them. And more than $10,000, which is grand theft. And he took advantage of the authority entrusted in him and intentionally misused. So you hear about those kinds of situations all the time. So that's what embezzlement is. Fraud, on the other hand, is when you you just lie. You intentionally lie. For example, to say that let's say um, obtaining some sort of profit or monetary gain through deceit. That's what it amounts to, or trickery. And so we get to um, forgery. So I went through fraud kind of fast, but you get that point. It's very clear that a person, for example, uh, doing dashing from a restaurant. You know, they got DoorDash, and the DoorDash can have two meanings. It could be a place that delivers food, but uh, where a person doesn't pay. I was in a restaurant. We were in Famous Dave's some weeks ago, and a young lady got stuck with a whole table. Took off. They left a little at a time, but the point of the matter is that it's a crime. Okay, it's theft, but it's also the specifics of it is based on fraud because you lead the person to believe that you're going to pay for your food. Um, Same thing with a taxi. It's kind of hard to do that with Uber and Lyft because you were required to put your credit card in and things like that before. So it's a little harder. All right. Forgery. All right, it's easy for this one to get you. I got write you a check for $10, and there's supposed to be something built in to protect you, like writing it in words and so forth. But let's say you leave space in there where a person can squeeze another number in there or something in front of it. Um, let's say they put in there 1,000, the word 1,000 and then 100. So 1,000, then they put that one comma and get it in there and cash it. And you have that money in your checking account and they cash it and the bank gives it to them. And then you say, wait a minute, I didn't write a check to John for that amount. Then that person has altered the instrument uh, and uses it to get what they want to. Same thing happens as people giving phony uh, prescriptions to obtain pain medication. Um, Drugs and crime. Drugs and crime. Um, when you take drugs and crime, Denise, did you take you were in drugs and crime with me, weren't you? Yeah, remember in drugs and crime, where people have painkillers and they want to. We saw this in the videos that we went over, that individuals will reach a stage where they commit fraud to get medications, signing the doctor's names and presenting prescriptions and so forth. Anyway, that's forgery. Okay. Welfare fraud is very easy, where you're applying for assistance, whether it's food stamps, link, also renter's assistance, energy assistance, any of them, by purposely concealing the amount of income that you have so that you get some help. That's what that is. Now for the big one. This takes so many forms that the general idea is that a person will profess to be someone else and buy it in that other person's name. I'll give you an idea. Usually it happens in conjunction with credit cards, but let me give you an example where it doesn't have to be with that. And this is based upon what happened to me. I went to get a phone for my daughter with AT&T, and when I went to get the phone, I already had AT&T for my home television and for my home phone and for my internet. All right. So I had that. But when I got ready to get the phone, they said, "Oh, you owe us some money for a cell phone." I said, "I haven't had a phone for AT&T." Well, what happened is that someone at my former residence, now listen to me, I moved from that residence in 2011. But when I was applying for this phone for my daughter, was like 2018, 2018. So that was 7 years. What had happened is that someone, you know how they send these offers. The house I own now, the people who used to live here before me, and the people even before them, stuff is delivered here sometimes, offering me, to get this credit card or get that or that in their names. What happened is somebody took that and filled it out, and they got the phone, they got the service, and I don't know how they did. They didn't have my social or none of that. But the bottom line was that it didn't really hit my credit report. I didn't see any of that until I got ready to go directly to the company, and the company had it in there, and they were able to get that phone and stick me. I had to prove clearly that it was not me. So that was identity theft. So they brought the phone saying it was Richard Wright, but that wasn't me. They had the address I used to live, but it was long before that. But it takes many forms. And you should be aware that the Federal Trade Commission um, has a lot of information about identity theft and how you can, and it's mentioned down here, FTC, dealing with how it happens through the internet. And with the fact that we have the internet, I have a situation where a few years ago, someone that I had gone to a restaurant, given the waiter my card, he not only charged me, but he had a little portable scanner and put it in there. And then he was part of a ring, plugged it into a computer later and sent it to Ohio. And they charged like $3,000 to my card without, when I still had my card in my possession. And the bank uh, was able to give me the money back. But then while investigating, they found out that this happened with a big ring. And there was like $300,000 or more that was stolen. And person got caught and flipped and told off. And that's how we found out. But it's something that's really hard. Almost every one of us have been or will be the victim of identity theft. Even people who are professionals like myself in law enforcement and in dealing with this stuff, it happens. Also, you have to be careful. That's why you have to protect things like your social security number, where places you work and all of that, um, bank account numbers and all of that stuff. Um, the point of the matter is that they can get these kinds of things. You be careful when you throw things away. You should shred them up. I don't have a shredder, but I tear them up in small pieces. If I have a credit card that I'm cutting up, I will cut it up in little tiny pieces and put it in different places in garbage and stuff like that. So you just have to be aware. And so it is a very serious offense, and you're going to have to do a paper on that. And you're going to be able to discover that it's just basically unauthorized use of your identification to acquire goods or services. So then we close here with credit card fraud. And that's simply using the credit card, like what I talked about that happened with me. Skimmers, here's what I was talking about right here. Skimmers, which are handheld, can be used to capture credit cards and pin data when the cards are swiped at the point of sale. But they also have, are you familiar with, they now have these things that you can put them on, at the ATMs, also at the gas pumps and stuff like that, where you can put your stuff in and then they can come back and pull them loose and they have your information. Are you familiar with that? Yeah. And that's why whenever I go to the bank, if I use an ATM, I don't care if it's outside or inside, I always test it to see, especially those outside, you can, so if you can pull it loose, then there's a problem with it. But you have to be careful about those kind of things. Don't matter the fact that people are on camera. There are people who they laugh at the camera and still commit the crimes. So anyway, there's statutes, federal and local, to deal with those things, but it's really something that is on the rise. What did you say here? You said uh yeah, 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 that's good. But the fact of the matter is that, yeah, it happens. It really is something that, because of technology has made it easier. That's why we have cyber police now as well. Okay, trespassing and vandalism. We're going to go through this a little bit faster. It just simply means that the property you shouldn't go on it. You should have a sign there, warning. And a common element includes a person that is informed that they should not go onto the property, and it's posted. That's typically it. Okay. Vandalism is very simply this. You see what that person's doing. Common element of criminal damage to property. That's what we're talking about now, vandalism. Intentionally damaging without the consent the property of another. Okay. So I asked my wife, I was messing with her. I said, we have two cars. One is your car and one is my car. But the title of both cars is mine. I said, if I got mad at you and I damaged that car that you drive, could I be charged with criminal damage to property? What would you say? Yes or no? Technically, you're correct. However, there could be some arguments made um, about the point. Yes, I'm paying for it, but I mean, even if I was just paying for it, but if the title was in her name, uh, yeah, it would. Do you think it would result in divorce? Probably. Anyway, so yeah, yeah, you get it. Okay. So it's property of another. So that's just something I just throw out once in a while. So if a woman became angry with her boyfriend, went to the driveway, stood on the hood of her car, and threw a brick through the windshield, she couldn't be prosecuted for criminal damage to property, okay? Because it's her car, to her own property. But notice it says if a woman became angry with her boyfriend and went out to the driveway, stood on the hood of her car, remember, and threw a brick through the windshield. But does that make sense? I think you got other issues here going. Okay, like my daughter would say, "That's a cray cray, Dad. That's a cray cray." Okay, criminal damage to property can occur in the commission of other crimes. So such as kicking down the door and stuff like that as well. So you would have multiple crimes. All right. So that's that. So we got everything in. Uh let's go now. It's right around 8:02. Let's spend a little time looking at these key terms. Well, we already went over vehicle theft, joyride, all of these. You want to remember these. When you're studying to get ready for the exam, you want to look at these. You don't want to have them open when you're taking the test because that's bad news. That's a violation of the academic integrity policy. But all of these terms we have mentioned tonight, and you get the definitions of these. So they provide in here the key terms to help you study. So now let's see. Let's do this little fun part here. Okay, a 17-year-old boy is walking home from school and approached by two suspects. The suspect shoved him into the ground and takes his wallet. What type of crime is this? A, B, C, or D? Yeah, yeah, because it was force that was used. Okay. 14-year-old girl left her bicycle on the front lawn. In the morning, the bicycle was missing and the family reports the crime. What type of crime is this? How come it's not this? Because it's not in the house, but the answer is, yeah. Oh, I did. I chose theft. Oh, they tricked me. They said, okay, now see, let me tell you something. This is why you have to be careful about these tests. It got me too, because oh no, that's another one. That's why. Okay, I'm sorry. That's the different one. I got to go back because that's not right. I I got to go back because I know what happened. I clicked on number 3 and put the answer. Okay, let's start the activity. Okay. Okay, so we said strong arm robbery. That's correct. All right. So what did you say? It was theft, right? Okay. So yeah, it was theft and not burglary because the bicycle was taken without their consent. This is where the 25-year-old attending a party. Now this is the one that's channel sometimes people mess up on. Attending a party inside the friend's house. While inside, the man breaks into a locked bedroom and steals burglary. He steals jewelry. Yeah, I gave the answer away. The crime is discovered next day and reported. Yeah, that's because I already know. Okay, so yeah, it is burglary because they were in an area they weren't supposed to. So, okay, so anyway, you go through these, and they will prepare you. That's funny. That's what my friends call up on the hill, call hilarious. Okay, now this, listen to me good. I say this all the time to students, and there are students who come back to me later and says, "You were right." I said, "I know. I'm not going to lead you down the wrong path." Pay attention to these questions, the ones I just went over too, but especially these, because I guarantee you they're on the midterm, which will take place after week 3. Some of these in various forms. The unlawful entry into the dwelling of another without consent with the intent to commit a robbery is known as what? You got trapped. You went for you didn't pay attention to the whole thing. Unlawful entry without consent with the intent to commit a robbery. Yeah, it's home invasion. Remember that involved threat or violence, robbery, right? See how you can get tricked? Be careful. That's what I'm telling you. All right. What crime is committed when someone points a weapon at another while on a sidewalk and demands they turn over the wallet? What's it called? Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, you can go through these and practice studying these. Okay. That's it for the night. Um, any questions? Yeah. What you think? I got one in mind that I like to use. Um, and I like to use it because it tricks people. It's a property crime, obviously, because that's what we've been talking about. What is it? Yay! Yeah, like it got you a few minutes ago, right? Yeah, burglary. Burglary. I guarantee you in the discussion post, if you when you because you can see them like I do, um, some people are going to find that she did not commit burglary, but they're going to be wrong because of what you learned, what you already knew. You knew it, but a lot of people get that wrong. So thank you, Denise, for coming out again. I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you, and keep on coming out. Because number one, you get your points right away. You're welcome. And next week, we're going to be dealing with the next serious level property crimes, crimes of the person. Um, I represented people in all of the above as a lawyer. So see you next week. Hey, speaking of that, who did you have in the Super Bowl? Uh, and don't tell me the Rams if you didn't have the Rams. Did you have the Rams or did you have the Bengals or did you care? Okay. I went for the Rams. I did. I had the Rams all the way for two reasons. Number one, I don't do that, but I know somebody. I was at my physical therapy sessions. This guy was talking about how much money he lost on not this game, but games before that. Um, the um, the thing is that I had them because they were in their home stadium, and I just felt they were the stronger of the team. And then that I felt like here's what I told somebody. If you saw the game, you know what I'm talking about. I said, if Aaron Donald gets into the backfield, even if he doesn't make a sack, but he makes hurries, they're going to lose. And actually, the last play of the game was Aaron Donald had him wrapped around and turned around, and Burrow couldn't throw the ball. He just kind of lobbed it, but you know. So anyway, I call it the Donald factor. So, all right, I will see you next week. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe. Take care of yourself. Good night.